Let's start off this day right. I want all of you to close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes with me, please. And I want you to think about your biggest competitor. Have you thought about them? Okay. Now I want you to imagine spending only a fraction of what they do in marketing to attract new business. Okay. Now picture you attracting customers again and again with marketing that is simple, predictable, and proven. Open your eyes. Is this reality for you? Is this the truth? For most people, it isn't. But what I'm about to share with you today is a framework, a simple and proven framework for being able to make this a reality for you. I'm going to show you how to become a marketing super freak. So my name's Dev. For the last 10 years, I have helped companies better their marketing and basically double or triple their growth through digital. And I'm going to be talking to you about how you can do the same for your brand, for your agency, for yourselves today. Let's start off by looking at a brand that we all know quite well. Because I believe that if you have always done what you're doing, you'll always get what you've got. So what's the commonality between GM, Kodak, and Blockbuster? Anyone? 2 out of 3 went bankrupt and 1 got saved. But here's also something that's a commonality between all of them. In their heyday, they were giants. They dominated their industries. They had multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. And, believe it or not, they had a lot of smart people as well. Smart marketers like you and I working at GM, Blockbuster, and Kodak. But they lost their way. They lost their way. They lost their competitive advantage. They did not evolve with the times, and neither did their marketing. But you guys are different, right? You're here at InboundCon. You're making the time and the investment to better yourselves, to become industry-leading marketers. But you know what? We have a problem in marketing. And this is the problem that I see all the time working with clients, working with startups, even in our own organization at Powered by Search. The thing is, if you're anything like I am, you want to get jazzed up in the morning. When you get up and go to work, you want to feel a sense of purpose, basically. But that's a little difficult. And sometimes it's difficult because, let me ask you this question. How many of you have a boss? Even though I am the founder of the agency, my clients are my boss at the end of the day. And the problem is that 3/4 of marketing executives do not believe that marketing drives demand or revenue. That's shitty. What do we get up in the morning for and go to work for if the people that we are driving results for don't believe in it? That's a big problem. And so marketing ain't easy. But it doesn't actually have to be that way. If you've always done what you've done, you're always going to get what you've got. So what I'm going to show you is a 4-step framework around how to make your marketing better, how to market like a super freak. Let's get into what a super freak basically does. So the first thing is this. All marketing performers, if you are effective at what you do, if you aim to be within the top 5% of whatever it is that you do in the world, usually these people have a framework. And I'm going to show you how to deal, baby. So the first step of learning how to deal is to learn how to define. What are we defining? Well, we're defining how to figure out your goals. So when you're looking at this map over here, the first question you should be asking yourself is, what is your mission? Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it clear? Is it apparent to everybody within your organization? Then from your mission, you need to start thinking about your goals. And your goals are specific objectives that will help you achieve your mission. From that, you then want to extrapolate out what are the specific strategies and tactics that will help you achieve your goals that then map up to your mission. But one thing that I always see brands, marketers, agencies get wrong is not having the right KPIs to measure their mission or their goals or their tactics. Let's see how this might work in an actual framework. So what we have over here, for example, is a filled out strategy framework around how you can actually measure specific things. So when I'm looking at this, well, maybe one of the tactics is we want to get some traffic to some local pages. And in doing so, what we want to do is measure the actual traffic within Google Analytics, as well as some rankings on the first page. Now, that's just one example of how to set your goals in a way that everybody understands. You don't need a 50-page document. You don't need a 50-slide deck, for example. Really aim for this rule of thumb. Can you actually put your goals, your strategies, and tactics on almost, can you draw it out on a piece of napkin, for example? It should be that simple to explain to almost anyone, whether or not they are technical, a marketer, or not. The next thing you want to do is this. You want to reward your hardest working channels. So we're looking at an analytics report over here. In this case, for this particular client, they drove $53 million of revenue from the start of the year. Notice that their biggest channel is organic search. Organic search drove 75% of those revenues. So $40 million came from organic search. Don't you think we should be putting a little bit more money, more effort, more budget, more headcount towards organic search? So you want to deconstruct basically what's already working for you and invest even more in it. So that's a part of definition. Step one is to define your goals and then have a very succinct approach around understanding what is your hardest performing channel. And that, in this case, was organic search. Step two is to eliminate. When you are eliminating, you are cutting away the fat from your marketing. Who amongst us wouldn't want to be leaner and meaner in everything that we do? I know I certainly would. So what you want to look at over here is eliminating your bottom performing channels, your worst performing channels, essentially. This is very much like Jack Welch taught at GE. Take your top and your bottom 10%, promote the top 10%, cut out the bottom 10%. In this case, for this particular client, we're looking at a multi-attribution funnel report, and what we notice over here is that social is not their hardest worker. So maybe the assumption going in was that, hey, social is going to work really well for us. In this case, this client was really gung-ho about it. But we were looking at the metrics, and we noticed that, again, organic search trumped out on top. In fact, I actually went through the effort of looking at different attribution models in here. I looked at both first click as well as last click, and social still came out on bottom. So it wasn't like it was just an assist basically along the way and that we should be putting more time, money, and effort into it. This doesn't actually mean you should eliminate social entirely. It just means that you should try to focus and really eliminate out the time, effort, and budget that you're dedicating to channels that just aren't as effective as others for you. Now, analytics is usually at a lagging indicator. It captures marketing performance after the initiatives that drove that performance have already happened. So this is a simple quadrant type framework to be able to measure your initiatives. It measures both an educated guess and your gut feel around whether or not what's worked for you in the past will work for you in the future. So what you have over here is proven and unproven on the top and bottom axis, and then you have ineffective to effective. What you can do with using this is formulate an idea around how your marketing might work out for you depending on the initiative. So in this case, for example, webinars were both proven to be effective, and that's why it's up there and towards the right over there. So let's see over here. Towards webinars or remarketing, both are proven effective. However, stumble upon ads are not, to be honest, very effective. They're good at getting traffic, but they're both unproven and they're ineffective as well. The next thing to figure out really is optimizing your sequencing, because you need to start doing things in the right order to be able to get the highest amount of performance out of them. If you don't have the right sequencing, you won't get optimal results. What you're looking for really over here, and the way Superfreaks think about it, is you should look for the lead domino, essentially. What is the one or two things that you could do in your marketing today that would result in all the other initiatives, all the to-dos that you have on your list becoming completely irrelevant? And just remember, the big thing to remember in becoming a super freak is to never lose momentum while you're making these decisions. Which brings us to the last point in elimination, which is be decisive. The word decision is an English word that evolved from Latin, and it comes from de-incision. So essentially, when you are deciding, you're not only picking what you want to do, but you're proactively saying what you don't want to do, what you're ready to cut out, basically, from whatever you decided. And that is the opportunity cost. Playing it safe and just being on the fence on both ways will not get you the results that you want. If you want lukewarm results, you can't be, if you want lukewarm results, you will be on the fence. But if you want results that are impactful, that are polarizing, you can't be on the fence about what stays in and what stays out of your marketing mix. Now, what you've learned at this point of time is how to define your goals and how to eliminate the fat from your marketing mix. This is where Superfreaks really get into their own, which is learning how to automate. How many of you are able to actually point out every single interaction that a customer has during the buyer journey or the buying cycle and are able to illustrate this on a piece of paper or maybe on a whiteboard? If you haven't done this before, do this tomorrow. Get into the office, get into the room with your coworkers, and start thinking about every single interaction point, every touch point that you could potentially have with a customer within your particular brand. And when you start doing that, you can start thinking about the marketing automation, the potential basically, on how you can take this thought process and make it better. So what you could do is really map out your journeys and do it visually, by the way. This is not about getting into some sort of marketing automation software and building out a workflow. It's not about learning what the email template should look like or what it should say. It is about being able to actually visualize it out and be able to explain it again to anybody within your organization. In this example, this is just a visual workflow from a marketing automation platform called Infusionsoft, and they seem to do it visually. We use HubSpot at Powered by Search, and they don't have a visual interface like this. But even when we're planning out these marketing automation workflows, what we do is we get on a whiteboard, and at that point of time, we map out every single interaction, every single follow-up, every single touch point. The next thing I want to talk to you about is something curious. Have you heard of what pirate metrics are? Arr. Well, pirate metrics were brought up by Dave McClure from 500 Startups. And they are a framework for really understanding different aspects of your marketing. So what you'll get over here is a framework where you're talking about acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. And at each stage of this funnel, if you will, you can impact it by being able to think about the marketing automation potential. The first step, almost for every marketer, if you have a website, and if you don't have a website, what are you doing here? The first step is to acquire a user to your website. In this case, the conversion rate is 100% because you've basically taken somebody who wasn't on your website, and then now you've got them on your website. Think about that. That's a powerful thing, and this is exactly when you're investing in search engine optimization, pay-per-click marketing, social media. It's trying to get somebody who's qualified from an external source to your website. So what's the marketing automation potential over here? Think about that. If you could get something, or you could do something to encourage that user to stick around and go on to the next stage, which is doesn't abandon the site. You're essentially trying to reduce your bounce rates. One of the things you could do, and there are many potential ideas, is to try and understand how to treat that visitor in a way that's personalized. Now, if you're not doing this today, you should be, and it's actually really easy to do. I could run through a lot of these other ideas over here, and you could feel free to have a look at them in the deck when it's posted. But let's look at an example of a startup that's actually using it today for growth hacking. And so this is Pipedrive. Pipedrive is a CRM software based out of Estonia, and they have offices in New York, I believe, as well. One of the things that they do really well in terms of personalization, and they've automated this, so there's nobody really trying to build out landing pages specifically, let's say, for Canadian users, is they know that I'm in Canada when accessing their website. And all they've done is they've done a simple relational database lookup that looks at how many of their customers are in Canada. And this acts as social proof because when I'm looking at this, I can see that there's 2,000 plus happy users in Canada. I am more likely to sign up because I feel like in country, there are other people like me who care about CRM that are also using Pipedrive. And that's right on their homepage. That gets me not to abandon the actual website, which is fantastic. They've now taken me to that second step of activation, which means that now I have a chance at maybe signing up for a trial. Maybe I'm going to go read their blog, for example. Maybe I'll do more in terms of the framework. And you can actually apply these marketing automation principles to every stage of the pirate framework, that RRR framework, basically, all the way up to the point where I am a paying user and they ask me for a referral so that I can then get a friend on board. And typically, startups do things like maybe offering me a couple of free months of service if I'm able to recruit more users. That's how they start growth hacking based on this framework. The last step is to liberate. How many of you feel stuck in a day-to-day mode of planning campaigns for them to take flight, for you to do postmortems, for example, and you just live this sort of campaign to campaign to campaign existence? That's kind of boring, to be honest. How many of you feel like you don't have the creative liberty to think about something bigger, something more epic, for example? Well, true liberation is really having that bandwidth to drive predictable results and predictable growth in your marketing mix. How do you make that happen? That's a difficult question to answer. Well, here's one thing to think about differently. Are you a marketer or are you a super freak? If you're not a super freak yet, will you become one after this talk? If I basically got even 20% of you to be able to start thinking in this particular way, I'll consider this a success. Marketers react to the news, and super freaks make it. So if you're doing things like newsjacking or reblogging, for example, anything that fills up activity as a marketing initiative, stop doing that. Start thinking about becoming a content creator, a maker, basically, in your industry. How do you go about doing that in both the epic fashion, but maybe you work for a brand that isn't quite as epic? How do you make that actually happen? Let's have a look at how the value of really long-term thinking and playing the long game can help you liberate your marketing. So the first thing is 10x content. A lot of you might have heard about this term. It started gaining popularity over the last year and a half. And that involves creating content that has a sustainable competitive advantage. It's defensible because you put so much time and effort in creating it, marketing it, promoting it, for example, that your competition will take a long, long time to catch up. This example is from Ramit Sethi, and he wrote a guide, it's probably about 15,000 words, on the ultimate guide to making money. His audience is freelancers, it's business people, it's people who want to make a side income as well, and he's published courses like how to make $1,000 on the side, for example, per month. This particular piece of content was only launched a couple of weeks ago, and it's now got over 10,000 social shares on Facebook. It's got likes, it's got links, and believe you me, it ranks on Google for money-making guide or how to make money type terms. And that's his core audience. You can make this type of content. It's not that difficult. But you really need to understand what your audience wants and then start making it that way. What if you are in an industry that is more mundane? Somebody in the audience owns a mattress e-commerce store. Are you in the audience? Can I see a show of hands? There you go, over there, sir. So how do you build content that your audience actually wants? If you haven't used Google consumer surveys, it's a great place to start. If you've thought that running a focus group is extremely expensive, in person, you would be right. But could you afford 50 cents for an answer to a variety of questions that you end up asking? So this is an actual case study on Google consumer surveys where they basically looked at mattress purchase behavior in the US population. And these are people who are not customers, but potentially could be. And they actually have all the tabular answers for all of the questions you could potentially ask. This is great because this is the fodder that basically supplies what you need to be able to create 10x content. Now, if they got about 13,000 answers over here, so in this case, the marketer probably spent about $6,000 on this. What if you don't have $6,000? What if you're a startup and you're trying to growth hack, learning more about your users and creating content that they want? Well, you can ask your site visitors to help you. And this is done through proactive surveying on the actual site. This is for a client of ours. We asked, it's a real estate brand, and we basically asked, well, if you are thinking about buying a home, how important is it basically to know how many parking spaces it actually has? And this is a Qualaroo survey that was added to the site. We got lots and lots of responses. It's very simple. It doesn't ask for any personal or identifiable information. And what we learned over here is that overwhelmingly, more people wanted to know how many parking spaces the house actually has. So guess what? That was added to the wireframes, the mock-ups, and made it on the site. And now that particular page is stickier and better and converts better as a result of that. So think about asking your users that are already on your site that you don't need to pay anything for, they're already there. Ask them how you can make your site, your content better through proactive surveys like this. And it doesn't cost you very much at all. There's a whole bunch of software tools out there that enable you to do this cheaply today as well. But the key thing over here is to ask them the right questions. Again, sequencing really matters. So let's recap how to deal like a super freak. The first thing you want to do is define your goals. After that, you want to eliminate the irrelevant. Don't get caught up in the activity of day-to-day marketing initiatives that do not move the needle. Then you want to automate the mundane. Start thinking about all the things that could potentially be automated. If you don't know what to automate, think about what do I do repeatedly on a day-to-day basis. If you keep doing it manually on a repeated basis every single day, every week, every month, that particular activity has potential for automation. And then finally, liberate your marketing by being able to create a defensible competitive advantage by creating some of the content that I just referred to. And that is how you end up getting predictable growth. These particular content pieces are not just about being able to launch them and then promote them or do that for the short term. In fact, I would bet that if you have a blog today, go look at the last 2 years of organic search traffic, and you'll see that 20% of your blog posts generate 80% of your traffic as well as your conversions. And especially, one of the key things you'll find out is that the older the blog post is, the better it actually performs. So when you are creating content, think about that long game, essentially. The content that you publish today will have dividends for years to come if it's good. And so now that you have these particular principles about dealing like a super freak, go forth and conquer your market, do it like a boss, and if you run into any challenges, shoot me an email. Thank you.